Hey, Brian Thomas here. Today I've got a video that we're going to be going over mostly saw blades. We've also got two fluids back there. This fluid right here, every Sawyer should have this if they run a sawmill and everything. We'll talk about that here at the end. But we're going to go over some saw blades for you in this video. We're going to go over, kind of where to get saw blades. I'll give you a little bit of history about myself that'll kind of lead into what I'm actually getting to here. But I started sawing in 2003. In 2003, I was using my future father-in-law's sawmill. It's a Timber King 1220, great sawmill. That's where I learned how to cut wood, how I turn a raw tree into usable lumber, and that was absolutely exciting for me. In fact, it was life-changing. And what I mean by that is, prior to going off to college or anything, I always wanted to be a mechanical engineer. So, big into working on vehicles, big into just mechanical aspects of things. However, upon meeting my then girlfriend and now wife, her dad had this sawmill. I started utilizing that thing, and the possibilities are endless with a sawmill. It's absolutely amazing to take some raw wood, turn it into usable lumber, and build whatever you want to build. So in my senior year of high school, I used that sawmill quite a bit and everything, learned a lot. That's kind of like my mentality is I learned by doing. So by using that sawmill, I learned a whole lot in the way of working wood. And it's life-changing in the sense that, again, I want to be a mechanical engineer. However, the school I went to also had a really great civil engineering program. So because of using that sawmill, I changed my career aspirations. I knew I wanted to be in the Navy and everything, so that was my main goal. My secondary goal was to get a degree that I could use whenever I grow up and what I want to be when I grow up. And when I'm retired from the Navy, it's be a couple of years down the road and everything, but when I retire from the Navy, I want to work with wood. I want to work with sawmills. I want to work with building stuff. So I got a civil engineering degree, civil environmental engineering, and then I have a minor in wooden structures. So that right there was a life-changing aspect for me. Because of running that sawmill, I changed what I was learning to better, my future self. So whenever I retire from the Navy, we're going back to Tennessee and everything, and I'll be working on my sawmill there, working on our farms. I want to build all sorts of stuff and get my kids into it as well, maybe even start a business with them or something. But anyways, that's what I want to do. But back in 2003, when I started on a sawmill, all I knew was it was a Timber King 1220. Therefore, I only knew blades from Timber King. I didn't know there were any other blade manufacturers out there, and I didn't know the length of my blade, this, that, and the other. And if you're new to sawing, if you're a new sawyer and everything, you may not know your blade length. And blade length is easily, at the end of this video, I'll show you how to measure your blade length, so you can look that up and everything. And I've also done a little short video on it, but it's really easy to do. Mark a section on your blade, mark that section on the ground, roll your blade out, measure the distance between the two sections on the ground that you marked. But I'll show that at the end of the video. But again, I didn't know how long my blade was. I didn't know how to measure a blade. I just knew that if I called up Timber King and said, hey, I need blades for the Timber King 1220, they got me blades. And, fast forward many years and everything, moved around with the Navy a whole lot. We finally moved to Mississippi. Then I started really, getting back into sawmills pretty heavily. And then I met Mr. Robert down there. And really, he opened my aperture, if you will, on saw blades. So he sharpens a lot of saw blades. He's been sharpening saw blades for sawmills since 1997, I believe, is when he started on that. So he's got a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of different blades and everything. He had a lot of information to show me about saw blades. And like I said, the time prior to that, I only ran Ultras from Timber King or Ultra Maxes. And I was very happy with those blades. I really don't have anything bad to say about them. But the point of this video is there are other options out there other than the company you buy your saw blades from, or your sawmill from, excuse me. So I believe, like, Wood Miser, they have the Wood Miser saw blades. Norwood might have their own. Timber King has their own. Every saw Cooks has their own. They all have their own saw blades that they either put a name to or something like that. But within the United States, there are a ton of manufacturers or distributors of saw blades. In fact, I was just talking to Mr. Dallas from SE Metals. I converse with, so in front of you there's 5 blades here, and there's 3 companies I've conversed with quite a bit. But I converse with these people, and I try to learn from them, and there are a lot of options out there for Sawyers and everything. So this video is to really get you to think outside of where you bought your sawmill, because where you bought your sawmill from, for them to put their name on that blade or whatever, there might be a little bit of a markup on that price. But if you're buying from the distributor, there are some savings that can be passed on to the customer. And also there's savings if you buy in bulk, or if you buy, you know, there could be shipping, free shipping or whatever. So we're going to kind of go over that. Again, I ran Timber King Ultra Maxes and Ultras for a long time and everything. Great blade and everything. I would sharpen them 5-6 times, all that good stuff. But after meeting Mr. Robert down there in Mississippi, I started to, you know, want to branch out, and there's some blade companies I always wanted to look at. Well, this first blade here, I think it's, yeah, this first blade right here was from Kenne-Saw Blades. And Mr. Robert down there, he was one of the managers there at Kenne-Saw Blades. He saw one of my videos and he said, "Hey, Thomas, would you be interested in testing out our blade?" And I said, "I would love to, but you know, free truth and lending all that. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I said, if you will send me some blades, I will run the blades and I'll give my honest assessment of the blades." So that's when kind of like the whole blade testing videos came out, and I needed to make sure I chose a testing method that is repeatable, so that I can show how this blade performs to this blade, how it performs to that blade. There's a lot of different factors that play into that. So if you look at the first video I did with the Kenne-Saw blades, I did one as like kind of a sneak peek, but the second video I did, if you will, is where we actually tested out the blade. And I wanted to make sure I used a very tough wood, if you will. Nothing that's too crazy, because I don't want to, you know, exaggerate or under exaggerate what the blade can do and everything. So my medium that I chose was ash or red oak. Ash and red oak, if you use the Jenkta scale, the hardness scale and everything, they're very comparable. Also, if you've cut both of them, they're comparable. The compressive strength of each is around 1360 psi or something like that on the Jenkta scale. And there might be about 30 psi difference between the two. If you want to go something a little bit harder, you can go to like a white oak, and it's around like, I think, 1600 or so. And then if you go even higher, hickory is around 1800. But anyways, on that scale, if I had 2 woods that were local in this area, red oak and ash, I knew I had enough medium to test my blades with. Also, you can't use board footage as the metric. Whenever I first did the video on the Timber King carbide blade, which has a ton of views and everything, I did that about 2 years ago, I did everything by board footage. Board footage is not the best accurate measurement you can do, because if you change the thickness of that board, you're doing less cuts, but your board footage could increase. So what I mean by that is a 1x6 and a 2x6. The blade travels through the same surface area on both of those, but the 2x6 of course has more volume, and board footage is a volumetric measurement. So the measurement to go by is square footage that the blade passes. The number of passes through there, and the square footage, the face value of that wood, is what we use as the measuring. So I can go from 2x material, 1x material. It doesn't matter what the board footage is, it matters what the square footage is, because that shows you how long the blades run through there. But again, that's getting pretty technical. I'm trying not to keep it too technical here. But anyway, Mr. Robert, he sent me this blade. He sent me a box of blades. I think it was 6 blades in there. I was very impressed. I mean, I was blown away by the performance of the blade. It actually performed better than any blade I've ever run before. And I've run, like I said, I've run the Timber King Ultra Max and Ultras, and I run Cook's Excels, and I'd run some Wood Miser blades in the past that I had on my LT15. But I wanted to torture test the blade, so I had to develop, you know, it's deemed, the set is lost when it goes below 18 thousandths on your set, and also the sharpness is deemed to be lost when I can no longer scratch off my thumbnail and everything. So it's kind of a little bit subjective, but I try to make it where something like it's repeatable, and those were pretty close to being repeatable. And also you can tell when you're cutting a wood, if you get like a wave in there, I say, okay, time to take that blade off. And that's usually how we did this. But if you look at this, the first Kenne-Saw blade that I did, I cut 12 ash logs with it, non-stop, mostly into 1x material. Very, very impressed with the blade. Great price point. I'm drawing a blank right now what the price point of these blades are, but maybe it's like $18 to $20 in that range. That's a great price compared to looking at one that might be from a sawmill manufacturer. Upon completion of that video, again, I was very impressed with that. My dad and I, we bought a couple boxes of blades and everything, and he's been running them. He absolutely loves those. Again, these are the Kenne-Saw blades. These are Monkford blades, and my buddy Neil down in Mississippi runs them. Mr. Robert talks highly of them. Very impressed with that. I then also had Mr. Dallas from SC Metals give me a call and said, hey, I saw your video. Would you like to test some of our blades? And I said the same thing. I said, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but if you would like to send me some blades to demo, I will demo those blades. I will do videos on those so I can create a comparison of blades, and it was something that could help the people. So this first blade here is, I believe this is a Ripper blade. This is a Ripper S blade. Very impressed. Excuse me. This is a Ripper S blade. That was the next blade I tested everything. Very comparable in performance to this the blade from Kennesaw and everything. This blade was a little more expensive, and it cut just a little bit more. When I talk a little bit more, we're talking about 3 to 5% more. But again, very impressive blade. I know other people that run this blade have some great reviews on that. So again, same metric. The first one I ran with ash. This blade I ran with oak. Again, this blade was around 20 bucks, I believe. Next blade I went to was a Casco blade, again from Southeast Metals. Very impressive with this blade, and Mr. Dallas also has some very, very competitive pricing. These blades here were under $18 a pop, and if you bought 2 boxes, which was a certain number of linear foot, I don't know what the actual thing was, but if you bought 2 boxes, it was like free shipping and stuff like that. This Casco blade performed comparable to the other 2 blades here and everything, but the price point made it just a little more I guess, cost effective, if you will. But again, a blade less than $20 for most people. I think it was around, I think it's actually less than $18. I can't remember. It was about $1 per linear foot. Then there was a slight change in pricing there, but very cost effective blade, and it runs a long time. So again, I was very impressed with these companies. They sent me these blades and everything, and I loved how they're performing. The next one here, I've actually not shown this one on video. This is kind of like the secret blade, if you will. My dad has run this blade, and let me tell you, he was cutting pine, and he was cutting some just southern yellow pine, and he cut somewhere around 1,200 board foot of southern yellow pine. But this will be for another video. This is another blade from SC Metals that we're looking at. And also, if you've been keeping up, I don't know if I've posted anything on this yet. This blade right here is from Mr. jmaine. Down there at ICT down in Georgia. And the funny thing is, all these blade manufacturers are down in Georgia. This is the 55 thousandths double hard wood miser blade at 4 degrees. I was cutting a lot of frozen logs. Now, we are out of the frozen log period, but I'll tell you, this blade right now has cut over 800 square feet and close to 1,000 board foot of wood. And you can see on there, it says wood miser and stuff like that. But, okay. That's a lot of information about blades. You're like, get to the point, get to the point. What I'm saying though is, if you buy from these distributors, by buying from the sawmill manufacturer, you are talking about a rather large savings. The Timber King blades I was buying, they were $5 to $10 more expensive than any of these blades on here. And again, I have nothing to say bad about the Timber King blades. They have performed well for me for years. I've literally done hundreds and hundreds of hours, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 hours running only Timber King blades. It wasn't until about a year ago when I started testing some other blades here and found out, like, you know what, there are other blades out there and they are phenomenal blades. They all perform about the same. So if you're getting the same performance of all the blades or anything, then you as the consumer, you as the buyer, this is your consumable good here and everything, you might want to go for who's the best bang for your buck. And that's what I'm talking about here. So you've got Kenne-Saw blades, Southeast Metals, Mr. jmaine there at ICT. These are all great options. And each one of these individuals are great to talk to. I mean, I'm a little bit old school. Customer service goes a long way. And also the fact that these are, companies here in America. Now the blade, most of the blade material is not here in America. This is actually coming from Germany, Sweden, wherever. Most of them are coming over from the material itself, the metal is coming from overseas. However, these blades are put together here. Most of these, like I said, in Georgia, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, they are employing folks here in the U.S. and everything, putting these together and getting these out to the Sawyers. There are a lot of portable sawmills these days and everything. And again, at whatever level you are, if you're a professional level, if you're like a, you know, kind of a weekend warrior, or even if you're a hobbyist and everything, finding the blade that matches what your cutting profile, what your cutting, you know, preference is very key. I have nothing bad to say about any of these individuals. From their companies, or prospective companies are great. Again, there's a lot of options out there, so don't feel beholden only to the company you bought your sawmill. So hopefully that was helpful. I will have continued testing videos on these blades and everything, because this blade here, we'll still run it. I mean, I still have a lot of running to do on this wood miser blade. Now, one thing I'll say, it is a 55 thousandths blade. These other ones are like 41 to 42 thousandths. A thicker blade, you only have so many revolutions that can go around the sawmill. So this blade probably won't last as long in the long run, but this blade will stay true in frozen logs, and I have demonstrated that, and I have some videos I have to process that shows that. So, and for wide cut stuff. So yeah, so there's that. So now let's talk about some of these fluids down here before we show how to scale out a blade there and measure it out. Okay, the first fluid we're going to talk about is automatic transmission fluid. Now this right here happens to be castor oil Transmax. I don't care what it is. I look for automatic transmission fluid, and I look for the cheapest stuff that I can find at AutoZone, Walmart, the gas station, whatever. If I ever see anything that's less than, like, say 15 bucks, really anything less than like 18 bucks, I guess it's pretty good on automatic transmission fluid. And then you want to get yourself a spray bottle just like this. This is just one I got at Menards or something like that. And then you just commence to spraying it on everything. I put that crap on everything. And that, like, whatever that hot sauce is, Frank's hot sauce. Anyways, I go over here. I will spray it in here. Now again, I've had this sawmill for almost a year now. There ain't a speck of rust on these chains. Not a speck, because I just do this crap right here. Yep, that looks about right. The good thing about and you can see, I spray this down all the time. Sawdust is not sticking to this. There are detergents in automatic transmission fluid that prevent it from having things stick to it. I mean, I put this crap on everything. I do have a bad habit. Whenever I'm greasing my Zerk fittings here, you always get grease on your hands. So I oftentimes will just go right here and, yeah, let's put some crap on there. So there is a little bit of residue from grease and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just put this automatic transmission fluid on everything. I put it on the rails. So all down, if I can spray without looking on the camera, spray all down there. I put it on any moving parts. So where these Teflon pieces go back and forth, I put it on there. I literally put this crap on everything. It will prevent so much maintenance down the road if you keep everything well lubricated. And again, sawdust does not really stick to this stuff. It's a detergent. You couldn't even tell what I did there. So I got it on my finger here. If I get it on camera, there you go. Got it on my finger. You can literally pick up this sawdust here, and it comes right off. Like, it is amazing that the automatic transmission fluid does this. If you put bar and chain oil, if you put, grease, you're going to have just an absolute mess. If you use lithium grease, all that crap is going to be a mess. Automatic transmission fluid is the way to keep everything moving, operating smoothly. Over time, you'll have all this sawdust built up on there. If you're using anything other than that, you won't be able to knock it off like that. So I like to put it on there. Doesn't matter if I get sawdust all over there, I can just move my chain around. But again, it's been out here for a year. Let's go down here to a section that I probably haven't sprayed in a while. Look at that. There's no rust. None whatsoever. And rain does blow in from the side here. This stuff's amazing. So if you don't have automatic transmission fluid, try to think about investing in it or something like that. It was a trick that I picked up from back when I had my wood miser. They were a big fan of putting it on all sorts of moving parts and stuff like that. It's great stuff. So the next thing we're going to talk about is this Biolube right here. So Biolube, this company here reached out to me. I thought it was pretty cool. And in fact, I tell this to anyone, if you're going to send me out something to demonstrate and everything, I'll make sure to put a sticker or whatever from you on there. I do have to get one from Kenne-Saw. I'll probably put it like right here because they were the first ones to send me something. But I like to promote companies who are trying to help out the Sawyers or trying to come up with things in our field of work, in our hobby level type stuff. I love talking to Sawyers. I love talking to people who help Sawyers make their jobs easier. This Biolube GP, I went to this, first off, now we live up here in Wisconsin. This winter, when I first started, I was running diesel in that tank. Diesel does great. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely thought it was amazing. Kept everything nice and clean. But let me tell you, folks, if you cut a lot of wood just running diesel, you are going to smell like diesel. I know Nathan from Out of the Woods, he's talked about the same thing. He ran diesel for the longest time, and he's working inside his building there, but it'll kind of atomize as it's hitting the blade and everything, and it will just get absolutely everywhere. And my wife was getting really mad at me because all my clothing smelled like diesel. And then diesel over time is an obnoxious smell. It just kind of gets to you and everything. This Biolube here, it is not, doesn't really have any scent to it whatsoever. And it does a great job. I've been running this now for 2 months, I believe, maybe 3 months. I ran it through most of the winter, and in the 3 months that I had in here, I think I maybe had it about to this point right here. So I've used 1.5 inches, and I still have quite a bit of left in there. This right here, that'll last you weeks of cutting, because with that Biolube, I'm also using Mr. Gary Atkinson's little felt system here. So it's a little felt pad. Zoom in here. So he made this little bracket here that you attach onto your shield, if you will, and he has a big felt piece that's all covered in sawdust right now, but it cleans up pretty easily. You put this into here, but you can also use a Brillo pad or something like that, and he's actually probably going to sell a couple of these kits and everything. And you have your delivery system on top there. It will then go into your felt and go ahead and wipe away all the stuff on your blade. Again, I haven't cut for, it's been like 3 or 4 days since I last cut. There's really no buildup on the wheel over there. Very minimal on this wheel. I did build this little extra flapper on top so that it helps to clean off the debris off this guide roller. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this Biolube thus far. The biggest thing, one of the reasons why I switched to that Vice water is because I was tired of all of my piping freezing. There's nothing more irritating when you come out in the morning and all your hose piping and everything froze, and I was trying to get into the habit of taking off my lube tank each day before it froze, because we started getting to freezing temperatures like back in October of 2022, and by switching over to diesel, then eventually over to this Biolube here, I didn't have to take anything off anymore. And that was a really big plus, because I didn't know when the next time I'd saw, and I didn't want to have this thing just sitting all over the place, and if the kids knocked it over, got diesel all over the place, that would have been pretty bad. Another thing is taking this on and off a whole lot. Yes, this is a plastic piece right here. I have broke one of these before. It just makes everything weaker. And again, control this little valve right here. Eventually I'll switch this out to a little brass ball valve. I find that to work out a lot better. All right, so again, that's a little plug there. I will do a more in-depth video on this Biolube coming up soon, because we're going to take this Biolube and we're going to test it against diesel, against water and soap and all sorts of stuff, and how well does it do in breaking down pitch. That's the biggest thing, is if you're cutting really, really pitchy wood. So we're going to show that. And there's also another type of Biolube that we've used, which is an additive that you add to water. This one right here, you run by itself. Okay, again, I've talked too long on this. Now let's show you how to properly measure out a blade to get the length of blade that you have for your sawmill. Okay, I'm going to show this from 2 angles. This will be the first angle from the operator's point, and then I'll show as I again roll this out. First things first, you have your blade on here. I'm going to go ahead and mark at the weld. So as you see, I marked at the weld as well as on my piece of wood there. And I've also set the tape measure there just to kind of make it easier to see. So now I'm going to try to do this one-handed. All I'm going to do is I'm going to wheel out this blade until we come back around to that mark. And I'm going to try to keep this as center as I can, and I already know what the length of the blade is. So right there is the mark. Let's see if I can draw this right there. So a Timber King blade is, for the 2020 and above, is 178 and a half. As you can see, we're right around there. We're within about a 1/16 of an inch or so of the 178 and a half inches. So there's that. Now let me show you from the other angle, and if you have any questions you can comment below. Okay folks, so again, you put your blade on here. I chose at the weld, put a mark on there. It's on the lower portion of the blade. It's marked on the deck. I'm just going to roll this blade out, trying to keep it in the same, you don't want the blade to travel left and right and everything, but you just keep on rolling it out. And I can see that my line again matches perfectly up on there, and I have a blade that's 178 and a half inches long. So that's perfect. Also, you can tell if it's good blade manufacturing or anything if they go ahead and when they weld it together, you do have a little bit of play in there. You can have upwards of, I'd say you have an inch to inch and a quarter of play in your length and everything. You never want to have a tooth right in the center. Let me show that from here. Okay, so you never want to have a weld seam like right here and you have a tooth right there, especially if you're going to resharpen a blade. There are some instances where you don't really care, so you'll go ahead and weld it wherever. But most of these blade builders and everything, they'll make sure, in fact, let's go to the weld itself. They'll make sure that your weld, just such as this, if you can see, they'll make sure that your tooth spacing stays consistent. Now you can see that tooth spacing might be a little bit less there. It's not a whole lot different, but even as it goes around the machine, you're typically supposed to start your setter or your sharpening around the weld, because you could have some variation here. If you had a tooth that was right here in the center, or like in the center right here, that right there could be detrimental if you're using a setter that's like a push style and everything, because it could change your set or change your throw a little bit, and then you could set something incorrectly. So again, always inspect, and you can tell how much care they put into it if you want a nice smooth gullet around the weld. So this is a very well built blade, and it feels nice and true in the back side. There's no burrs, everything raised up. There's no burrs and stuff in the gullet. So there you go. Again, hope this was informational to you, and we'll go ahead and do a little recap there of the sawmill. Okay folks, hopefully that wasn't too long. I know we covered a lot of information, but I want to put this information out there because there's a lot of folks that are new to sawing. And again, I was new and didn't understand all the different options out there until I learned about them. So hopefully this video is educational to folks. Again, I've bought Timber King blades for forever, and they always work really well for me. I really had no complaints. It wasn't until here recently I opened up my aperture and started looking at these other companies and everything. They started sending me stuff, and I've been very happy with collaborating with these folks and everything and working with them. Mr. Robert from Kenne-Saw Blades, great individual, easy to talk to on the phone, got a lot of information and everything. They sell a great product. I believe they're the only ones who sell the Monkford blades in the US, so I think they're like the sole distributor. Great blade. Mr. Dallas from Southeast Metals, they've got a couple different options out there. I'm very impressed with them. I think the Casco blade is probably one of the better deals out there, and performance amongst all these blades is probably within like the 5 to 8% range. I mean, they're all pretty close on what they can do. So again, very happy with that. But again, I am happy running all of these blades. And my dad, he's got the Monkford blades. I've got some of these Casco blades here. The Ripper blades I'm a big fan of that. It was awesome too. And then Mr. jmaine there at ICT, testing out some of those double hards and stuff like that for Woodmiser, and the special application blades. Those are really cool. Now, these are only a few companies. There's a lot of companies out there. Another which one that I've heard of is Jerry's Resharp. I think they're in Kentucky. Jerry's Resharp, I've heard great things about them, and I believe they do the Ripper 37 or Ripper something like that. They're a Ripper blade distributor, and they're great blades. What I'm trying to get at is you could actually, if you didn't know, there could be a blade distributor near you. There's a lot of blade distributors all across the country. You've got them on the West Coast, East Coast, Central, North, South. They're everywhere. You might have someone close to you who could get you a better price on shipping or even free shipping, and shipping in like 2-3 days. Everyone who I've talked to from who gets the Casco blades or gets the Southeast metal blades, if they're essentially east of the Mississippi, they're getting those blades really quick, within like a day to 3 days, something like that. Mr. jmaine, same thing. If you're in that area, and if you go through these companies, they can also guide you. They'll probably have some information on your sawmill and everything, and give you an idea of what blade length you need. But it's always a good idea to measure out your own blade, and also understand, maybe you want to call up your sawmill manufacturers, like what is the tolerance? What is the amount of variation in the blade you can have? It could be 1.5 inches. It could be 3/4 of an inch. I don't know. I mean, it's something you can play with. But I know for the Timber King 2020 and above, it's 178.5 inches, and it's a really easy number for me to remember for some reason, and it's really easy to measure out too. So again, a lot of information today. I appreciate you watching this video. I am looking forward to the Sawmill show that we're going to be doing June 10th down in Tennessee. We might have some special guests there. jmaine might be there. I don't know. I'm excited because we also have two sharpening systems that we'll be getting from him, and I'm very much looking forward to that. The Wood-Mizer BMS 250. I cannot say the acronym to save my life, but I think I got it right this time. BMS. Robert Westfall down in Mississippi has 2 of them. He is blown away at the performance of those. We also have a Cook's sharpener and setter. I might be selling my Cook's sharpener, I don't know, and I also have a Timber King sharpener up here and setter. But with these new systems we're getting, there's a possibility I might sell 1 or 2 of those systems. We'll find out. But again, if you can make it out to the show, I would love to have you there. If you can't, don't worry. We're going to try to do a sawmill show here in Wisconsin sometime in the fall. I want the weather to be beautiful so people can experience the beautiful fall weather we have here in Wisconsin. But again, I've talked for way too long. I appreciate you if you've watched the video this long. And please like, subscribe. If you have other people out there who have questions, please send the channel on to them. This is an informational channel, and I want it to be a place for knowledge sharing, learning, and just good times. Saw safe, and we'll see you around. Thanks.